Waiting didn't start as a decision. It started as something small, a pause. Just a moment where doing nothing felt easier than choosing something. I told myself it was temporary, that I wasn't avoiding anything. I was just being careful. Careful sounded responsible. It sounded mature. So waiting didn't feel dangerous. It felt reasonable. I wasn't falling behind. I wasn't failing. I was just giving myself time. At least that's what I believed. From the outside, my life looked fine. Nothing dramatic was happening. Nothing was breaking. I had routines. I had obligations. I had reasons for being tired. And because everything appeared stable, I never questioned the direction. Waiting blended into daily life without resistance. I waited for the right moment, for clarity, for confidence. I waited until things felt less uncertain, until I had more energy, until life slowed down. Later became the answer to everything, not now. Later, not this year. Later, not yet. Later. Waiting sounded patient, not fearful. It sounded smart. I told myself rushing would be irresponsible, that impulsive choices ruined lives, that staying where I was meant I was being grounded. So I stayed. Days passed quietly. Weeks blurred together. Seasons changed without announcement. Nothing went wrong. And that's how waiting became invisible. There was no clear moment when waiting stopped being temporary. It didn't announce itself. It just settled in. I began organizing my life around delay, around preparation without action. I thought about change more than I moved toward it. I imagined possibilities without stepping into them. I became very good at explaining why now wasn't the right time. Money, timing, other people, and sometimes responsibility, waiting hid behind sensible reasons. It wore the language of adulthood. People around me were waiting too. We joked about it. We normalized it. Everyone seemed tired. Everyone seemed busy. We laughed about how time moved faster now, how years disappeared. But no one talked about where they were actually going. Waiting didn't feel like standing still. Life was still happening. I woke up, I worked, I showed up, but somewhere along the way, movement stopped meaning direction. I wasn't choosing where I was headed. I was just continuing. Waiting doesn't remove things all at once. It takes them gradually. First, curiosity fades, then urgency disappears. You stop asking questions that don't have immediate answers. What do I actually want? What would I choose if I wasn't being careful? Those questions feel uncomfortable. So waiting gently pushes them aside. I didn't stop dreaming. I just postponed believing in those dreams. I told myself I was realistic now, that expectations needed to be adjusted. But realism slowly turned into resignation. I didn't hate my life. That's the part that made it dangerous. If something had been clearly wrong, I might have acted. If there had been pain, I might have moved. But there was comfort, and comfort is persuasive. Waiting thrives in comfort. It convinces you there's no urgency, that you have time. And because nothing feels urgent, you assume tomorrow will be different. Tomorrow becomes a placeholder, a promise that doesn't require action. today. I didn't realize how often I was saying no to myself. Quietly, politely, not now, later. Waiting trained me to accept less without noticing, to shrink expectations without calling it loss. I stopped noticing how long I had been standing in the same place. The moment of realization wasn't dramatic. There was no breakdown. I was doing something ordinary, something familiar, and a thought appeared, uninvited. If nothing changes, this is what my life will continue to look like. Not worse, not better, just this. That thought didn't scare me. It unsettled me because it felt honest. I realized I hadn't chosen this path intentionally. I had simply remained on it. Waiting had made the decision for me. I understood then that waiting isn't neutral. It always chooses something. When you wait, you choose comfort over uncertainty. You choose familiarity over curiosity. You choose safety over movement. Waiting doesn't feel like a choice, but it is. And over time, it becomes the default. I wasn't incapable of change. I wasn't trapped. I was just practiced at delay. Waiting had become normal. So normal that imagining anything else felt strange. That's the quiet danger of waiting. It doesn't announce itself as a problem. It doesn't demand attention. It simply replaces intention with routine. I didn't ruin my life. I didn't make a catastrophic mistake, but I did allow waiting to define the shape of my days. And once I saw it clearly, I couldn't unsee it. That awareness didn't force immediate action. It didn't create instant clarity, but it did change the way I understood time. I realized time doesn't pause while you wait. It keeps moving, quietly, consistently. Waiting had felt like patience, but patience without direction slowly becomes avoidance, and avoidance over time becomes identity. I'm not saying waiting is always wrong. Sometimes waiting is necessary. But waiting without honesty is costly. It costs momentum. It costs clarity. And sometimes it costs the version of yourself you never allowed to fully exist. Waiting became normal for me because it felt safe, because it made sense, because it required no courage. But safety isn't the same as fulfillment, and comfort isn't the same as peace. I didn't change everything overnight. I didn't suddenly know what to do. But I stopped pretending that waiting was neutral. I stopped telling myself that later was guaranteed, because later isn't promised. It's assumed. Waiting had quietly become my way of life, and noticing that was the first real movement I had made in years.